In something of a departure from the normal videos in this series, we will now look at how my dad super detailed old trying locos and stock. Class history will be at the end of this video. Back in 1973, when I was presented with my first model railway built by Dad, it came with two locomotives, a Great Western pannier tank and a BR Southern Region L1. Here is a photo of them taken more recently. Along with a selection of freight stock came 3 square-ended Triang Southern coaches. This soon became 4. In the photos you're seeing now, you can catch glimpses of them along with both the locomotives. This was my old model railway, seen back in the early 80s. Some years passed and Dad repainted both his L1, that was in a very eye-catching malachite green, and my BR1 into Southern 1938 livery. At the same time, they received all-metal wheels, Romfords in fact, and 5-pole armatures and a few other enhancements. Now we scroll forward to January 2006, when my family had been celebrating my grandmother's 100th birthday. After the event in a small car park, Dad met me with a gift of 2 uprated Triang locos. One, an M7 that you will see another time, but rather wonderfully for this video anyway, an L1 in BR livery, carrying the same number as my original and in near perfect Triang condition. A small note was included with the loco. It's on screen now and references the smoke unit that was once fitted to these models. A photo from inside this very L1 lets you see the detail. So I present you now with this L1 acting as my original, with the very coaches that started my model railway career. Yes, they've had new bogies and wheels, but otherwise they are as they were. Despite the older 3-pole motor, she runs really well and manages to drag all of the coaches perfectly. So now, bringing in my next set of original coaches is my original but repainted L1 with 3 bow-ended Triang Southern coaches and one of the parcel vans that Dad made for me by cutting and shutting 2 brake ends. As you can see from the picture, the joint is hardly visible and it makes a rather wonderful parcel van. Now listen to this old girl, smooth as silk, as she always was, and instantly transporting me back to the 70s and a simpler time, filled with only the cares of a 10-year-old boy, such as they were. Pocket money wagons from the local toy shop, trips to Fratton Bargain Shop, Tony Collett's, Dave Cleal's, and many other model shops around Hampshire, as Dad purchased bits to make his by now famous kits and scratch builds. Finally joining the parade is Dad's repainted L1, this time hauling some Maunsell stock, cutting a very fine picture indeed, and also running like a dream. So there we are. As the trains run, I just want to say that for me anyway, model railways is not all about super detail and collector's items. It's about a vital connection to the past, not only of the locomotives, but the personal past of the modeller, a simpler, maybe happier time that's often forgotten these days. Enjoy the trains. The Southern L1 class was a class of 15 fourth-row steam tender locomotives built for express passenger services on the south-eastern main line of the Southern Railway. They were designed by Richard Maunsell and were a development of Harry Wainwright's L-class. In 1926 there was an urgent requirement for 15 more powerful 440 locomotives for the London to Folkestone express trains. Maunsell did not rebuild the L-class as the locomotives were still relatively new and useful in their present form. He rather amended Wainwright's drawings to form his own L1 class and supplied them to the North British Locomotive Company. The locomotives were used on express trains to the south-eastern main lines, from London to Dover, Ramsgate and Hastings. They remained on these duties until the mid-1930s, when they were gradually replaced on the heavier trains by the new King Arthur and Schools classes. They continued to be used for the former London, Chatham and Dover Railway main line to Dover and Ramsgate until after the Second World War and nationalisation of British Railways in 1948. The transfer of Bulliard's Light Pacifics to these services in the early 1950s made the class largely redundant. Some were briefly transferred to Eastleigh and to replace worn-out locomotives on cross-country services, but most spent their careers between London and the Kent coast. Withdrawals began in 1959. The final locomotive was withdrawn in February 1962. Sadly, none of this handsome class remain. Thanks goes to Cressy Publishing for allowing me to use some of the pictures from this marvellous book.